Okay, imagine this. A huge development project gets announced for your town. Big plans, shiny renderings. But then the community sees it and they react strongly. What happens next? Do things grind to a halt? Or maybe, just maybe, can that pushback actually lead to something better? That's exactly what we're diving into today. We're looking at the story of Boca Raton's Government Center campus redevelopment. Specifically, we'll be exploring the really significant changes made by the developers Terra-Frisbie, changes made directly because of what the public was saying. We're digging into a detailed report from the Boca Raton Tribune for this one, our mission, to unpack how this wave of grassroots feedback actually reshaped a major urban project. We want to highlight the specific shifts in the plan, or maybe figure out what this whole process tells us about balancing progress with, well, keeping a place special, preservation. Okay, let's unpack this. It sounds like this isn't just about buildings, right? It's more about how a city really defines its own spaces. So what was the initial situation? What actually sparked such a strong reaction against the first version of this project?
Well, the article, it put it pretty clearly. The original plans hit, quote, significant grassroots headwinds. You see, residents felt those initial designs were going to fundamentally change some really cherished parts of their downtown. It sparked what the Tribune actually called a firestorm, especially around certain key elements of the area.
A firestorm. That's strong language.
It was. And the level of public engagement here, it was genuinely remarkable. This wasn't just, a few loud voices. We're talking over 5,200 Boca residents. They actually signed petitions asking for a public vote on the whole project.
Wow, 5,200. That's
Yeah.
a serious number.
Exactly. That number alone really tells you how strong the community feeling was, the depth of the concern, and the issues driving this. The things the revised plan now tackles head on were things like the fate of these beloved iconic trees, the amount of green space being proposed, and just the overall density of it all. People felt like the unique character of their city was genuinely at stake.
Yeah, 5,000 signatures for a public vote. You can't ignore that. That's way more than just headwinds. It's a clear demand from the community. So facing that level of challenge, Terra-Frisbie is now coming out with a new vision for the campus. How do they get from that firestorm to, well, a plan that sounds quite different?
Right. So just yesterday, Monday, September 8th, they presented an updated site plan at the City Council workshop. And the key thing here is that it really shows they listened. It directly incorporates what the article calls extensive community feedback. Apparently, this came from over 30 public meetings.
30? That's not a lot of meetings.
It is a huge amount of dialogue. So this wasn't just a minor tweak, It represents a direct, measurable response to that deep, broad public engagement. It sort of suggests the developer really took that collective voice seriously, strategically responding to it, maybe even seeing the value in it.
30 public meetings implies a serious commitment from both the residents and the developers. So, okay, here's where it gets really interesting. They didn't just tweak it. The report says they made major changes. What were the most critical transformations that came out of all that community input? What parts were really reshaped?
The changes are substantial. They really seem to hit almost every major point people were raising. Let's start with Memorial Park. The new plan completely reimagines it. It makes the park the, quote, true center of the downtown area.
The true center, so elevating its importance.
Exactly. And it's not just about location, it's about commemorating its history with a dedicated monument. And crucially, they plan to work directly with the city and local veterans groups on the design to make sure it truly, quote, honors its purpose.
Okay, so that's a direct response to valuing history, civic pride.
Absolutely. It shows they're trying to connect with community values. It's a collaborative approach on something deeply meaningful. It kind of sets a tone, doesn't it, for how they're handling other sensitive points.
It does seem like a smart move involving the veterans groups directly, but was that the only major flashpoint? You mentioned trees earlier.
Yes, the beloved banyan trees. That was huge. The original plan hinted at their apparent removal or relocation,
Wow.
and that, according to the Tribune, caused a massive firestorm. People were not happy.
I can imagine. Those old trees often mean a lot to a community.
Exactly. So in what seems like a very direct response, the developers have now decided to keep all 6 of the beloved banyan trees right where they are, in their original spots.
That's a clear win for the residents then.
A huge win. But they didn't just stop at preserving them. They're actually adding a children's playground right next to the trees. The idea is to celebrate their importance, make them a feature, and create this natural, shaded play area for families.
Oh, that's quite clever. turning a point of conflict into a positive feature.
Right. It highlights how powerful public feeling can be over specific, cherished landmarks. These aren't just trees, they're symbols. And transforming that fight into a family-friendly space, that feels like a really thoughtful resolution.
It really does. That's a fantastic example of turning a negative into a positive. Okay, so beyond specific landmarks like the park and the trees, what about broader concerns? People in cities always seem to want more green space, better places to play or relax. What did the revised plan offer for increasing green space and improving recreation facilities?
That was definitely another major focus area. The plan includes a commitment to significantly increase the overall green space downtown, which is often a big point of contention in urban development, right?
Always. Space is premium.
Exactly. And then for the active folks, there's a specific promise to enhance a minimum of 8 existing tennis courts. Now, the article does mention it's not clear yet if there'll be clay or hard courts or maybe a mix, but the commitment to improve them is there.
Okay. Enhancing existing courts.
Okay.
Any new facilities.
Yes, and this is interesting. The commitment extends beyond just downtown. They're also planning to add and improve recreation facilities in other parts of the city closer to where residents live.
So spreading the benefits out a bit.
Seems like it. It's not just about packing amenities into the new development site. It feels like a broader strategy to make recreation more accessible across Boca, addressing that wider urban desire for more public spaces and activities.
Distributing those benefits citywide. That sounds like a really considered approach, actually.
Yeah.
But hang on, if you're adding more green space, more recreation, preserving trees, something has to give, doesn't it? How are they balancing that with the development itself?
That's a great question, and it links directly to another really critical change: significant reductions in density. The new plan includes, quote, significant reductions in the amount of commercial uses and the number of proposed residential units.
Okay, so fewer shops, fewer apartments or condos.
Exactly. This isn't just cosmetic. Reducing density has real impacts. Think about infrastructure needs, traffic, demand on public services. It all scales back. It feels like a fundamental rethink of the project's overall footprint on the city.
Right, reducing the load on the existing infrastructure.
Precisely. It directly addresses those core anxieties people had about growth potentially overwhelming the city or changing its character too much. The developer's statement, according to the article, says this change will align the project more closely with community desires for a balanced, livable downtown that respects Boca Raton's unique character.
A balanced, livable downtown. That sounds like the goal. So less density, more green space, preserved trees. What about the government part of the government center campus, the actual civic buildings?
Right, the community center and city hall, they aren't just tweaking those either. The proposal calls for entirely new facilities, brand new buildings.
The complete replacement.
Yes, and the aim is for a serious upgrade. They're being designed, the article says, to feature modern technology and a more welcoming design. Basically replacing the current buildings with something, quote, more functional and aesthetically pleasing.
So improving efficiency, but also the look and feel, making them more inviting.
That seems to be the goal. It impacts, civic pride, but also just the basic functionality of public services, creating spaces that are efficient for the city to run, but also welcoming for residents to use. It's a chance to build a civic heart that reflects the community's aspirations, maybe feels more genuinely like Boca.
Okay, so we've walked through these pretty major changes. The park, the trees, more green space, less density, new civic buildings. It sounds like a substantial shift from whatever the original plan was. How are the developers, Terra-Frisbie, talking about this after facing such strong opposition initially? Are they just saying, okay, you win, or is there a different narrative?
Well, their public statements suggest it's more than just capitulation. David Martin, the CEO of Terra, and Rob Frisbie Jr., the managing partner of Frisbie Group, they put out joint statements. And they emphasize things like, and I'm quoting here, community input strengthens projects.
Freeze projects. That's interesting framing.
Isn't it? They also explicitly said, the site plan unveiled today is a direct result of the feedback shared by residents. And they went further, saying, public input makes for better outcomes.
Better outcomes, not just different, but better.
Exactly. And you have to remember, the article notes these developers have collectively developed dozens of communities across South Florida.
Yeah.
So that statement, coming from experienced players, carries some weight. It's not just PR fluff, maybe. What's really fascinating is how it's presented, not as a grudging concession to quiet things down, but as a genuine belief that this dialogue, this feedback is valuable, that it actually leads to superior projects.
That That does raise a bigger question, doesn't it?
It really does. Could this kind of significant responsive shift signal maybe a new model for doing these large-scale developments,
Hmm?
where community engagement isn't just a hurdle to clear or a box to tick, but actually a core part of the design process itself, foundational even?
A truly collaborative model, not just consultation after the fact. That would be a shift. The article does end on a slightly cautious note, though. It acknowledges that, quote, whether these changes fully satisfy the more than 5,200 Boca residents who signed petitions remains to be seen.
Hmm.
So even with all these big revisions, this story isn't completely wrapped up yet, is it?
No, definitely not the final chapter. It seems pretty clear the developer did listen. They did take into account public critiques, especially around those hot-button issues. Green space, the banyan trees, the war memorial aspect, the tennis courts, that's all in the new proposal. The fact they addressed those specific, very visible points shows the community's impact was real.
But satisfaction isn't guaranteed yet.
Right. And the dialogue is set to continue, which
Yeah.
is probably smart. They've actually just announced 2 more public workshops for people to keep engaging. One is on Monday, September 29th from 4 to 7 p.m. at the downtown library, and another on Monday, October 6th, same time, 4 to 7 p.m., but at the Spanish River Library.
Okay, so more opportunities for feedback.
Exactly. It emphasizes that this is still an ongoing process. The community still has a chance to participate, to keep shaping things as the project moves forward. Their voices are still needed.
Right. So recapping our deep dive today, we've looked at how really vocal community engagement in Boca Raton dramatically reshapes a major urban development. What started as those grassroots headwinds, that firestorm, it transformed into a significantly revised plan, one that seems to prioritize things the community clearly valued: green space, those iconic banyan trees, recreation, and importantly, reduced density, all reflecting that direct feedback. This whole story, it really illustrates the tangible power an organized community can have, doesn't it? The power to shape the places we live. And it shows how developers can adapt their visions. Maybe sometimes they must adapt, potentially leading to better outcomes for everyone. It feels like a testament to the idea that a city's future isn't just decided in boardrooms with blueprints, it's also shaped by the people who live there. Now, the developers stated their revised vision includes prioritizing community spaces, walkability, and resiliency. Key buzzwords there. Given this whole extensive process, the feedback, the revisions, the ongoing dialogue, it leaves us with a question for you, the listener, to think about. How could a city, years down the line, truly measure the long-term success of a project like this? How do you know if it genuinely fostered those values, community walkability, resilience, and adapted to the city's evolving needs, beyond just satisfying the specific demands made back in 2025? And what lasting lessons might other towns, other communities draw from Boca Raton's experience with this kind of responsive urban planning?